first webinar launching the official Brazil Immersion Week 2026. My name is Angela Stathi, and I am the co-founder of Brazil Tech Connect. Our mission is to build this bridge between Brazilian and LATAM, UK, and the European ecosystems. We work day in day with the founders, these corporations, investors, and leading institutional bodies to make international scaling structure a reality rather than just one-off business trip. So today marks an incredible, exciting milestone for us, as we are officially opening the doors to our upcoming Brazil Immersion Week. Today's session will last exactly 60 minutes. And we will use the Q&A box that is available at the bottom of your screen for you to submit some questions at any time. We will do, of course, our best to address them during our session. And we will also follow up with questions that you might have not had yet the interest to express during this call. Please note that this session is being recorded and it will be available in our digital channels afterwards. Before we start, I would like to thank very much all our partners for this trade mission. So starting with the UK government's Global Entrepreneurial Programme, Technopole, Boardwave, InnoStars, the Hive Ventures, London Business School, as well as Softext, Fiesp, and a number of other institutions such as Cubo, InnovaBra, Learning Village, Level 39, Sebrae, Global Tech Advocates, Tech Brazil Advocates, ABS Startups, Data Business, Cadmo Tech Ventures, Franco Advogados, EBS, and of course, Mourão Campus Group. To help us kick off this beautiful journey and understand very much the sheer scale and depth and the dynamics of the Brazilian ecosystem, we will have the privilege to have today with us Professor Mario Sergio Salerno. Professor Mario Sergio is a senior full professor at the Polytechnic School in São Paulo, University of São Paulo, and he's in charge of the Department of Production Engineering. He heads the Innovation Management Laboratory, and his background includes global institutions, such as including research stages, postdoctoral work, and Polytechnic Milano, the University of Sussex, École Nationale des Ponts, and Chaussée in Paris, Polytechnic Institute in New York. And he also has held pivotal public leadership roles, serving as a former director for the Brazilian Agency of Industrial Development, ABDI. He's also the director of Institute of Applied Economic Research. So it is incredible that we have this opportunity to have Professor Mario Sergio with us today. And I would like to open the floor to the professor to walk us through this beautiful landscape of Brazil and for us to understand a little bit more the Brazilian innovation ecosystem. So Professor Mario Sergio, over to you.
Hi all, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to discuss the Brazilian innovation system with you. I will share my screen. Okay. I hope you can see it. Suggesting here. Okay. Well, the agenda I am proposing to you is to briefly discuss a bit of the Brazilian innovation system, the institutions, the legal aspects, the institutional landscape, some clusters and some companies, and what can you do in Brazil? Okay. Well, there is a Brazil that many people know. It's about the Amazon forest. The football, of course, not that high today, but anyway, English is much better, but let's skip that part. The carnival, coffee, okay, but there is another Brazil that most of the people don't know, It's linked to innovation, technology, competitiveness, productivity, and so on. I will talk about this second Brazil, okay? So here's Brazil in the world in yellow, okay? Brazil is quite a large country. Here you have some figures. Brazil in South America, it has border with 10 countries, 8.5 million square kilometers. It means around 15% of South American surface. It's a lot. Around 213 million inhabitants, mostly urban, as usual. It's around 50% of the South American population, but the state of São Paulo, where you are gonna be, say, in your immersion, it takes around 22% of the population, and São Paulo metropolitan area, the São Paulo city and the surroundings, it accounts for 21 million inhabitants. So it's a large town, very large town, and it congregates a lot of business, a lot of innovation. I will show you. The inflation is around 40% a year, and Brazil on the purchasing party, it's in the world. The UK is a 9. Okay, so you have some figures on that. If you want a more detail, you after. The middle class is growing, you know, middle class, I think, and this is quite, say, quite new for our country. Brazil has some multinationals. I picked up some of them on brewer, on animal protein, on iron casting, aircraft, buses, IT, and oil, and much more. For instance, Natura is not here, but Natura is a leading company in cosmetics based on natural ingredients for the Amazon forest, not only from the Amazon forest, but mainly from the Amazon forest. An outstanding work they are doing. Brazil has a good science as well. You can see in this graph the evolution of the paper published by Brazilians. It's not the best indicator you can have, but anyway. And we have some paradigmatic companies. I'll talk about two, briefly about two. First is Petrobras. Oh, it's oil producer. Okay, but it gets oil in more than 2,000 meters in the deep sea, and then more 2 or 3 kilometers in the rock. It's the only company that can do that in the world, and that means a lot of contracting with IT companies, universities. Petrobras has around 4,000 contracts in Brazil, so there is a large ecosystem linked to the company. The other one is Embraer. Embraer is the third aircraft company in the world, and this is a system developed by some universities for Embraer in order for Embraer to develop their projects on the computational fluid dynamics. Okay, so you can see here some universities, some companies, and it has joined around 100 specialists to develop it. Okay, so we have a tradition of cooperation. Okay, well, energy is of most importance. The Brazilian energetic matrix is quite green. Okay, you can see here in green the greening of the energetic matrix comparing to the world. When it comes to electricity, only electricity, I think Brazil is the most green country in the world in the production of electricity. Our electricity is mostly came from hydraulic power, hardly from fuels. And you can see it's the greening of electricity production in Brazil, it's around 82%, and in the world it's around 25, 23, depends on the period. Okay, and we have a very particular fueling system for cars, but that means a lot of companies, a lot of research, a lot of startups working for that. The ethanol is fuel in Brazil since 1975, during the old oil crisis, not the current oil crisis, but the old oil crisis. And we developed a system that you can use fuel with any portion of ethanol and gasoline, and the system recognizes and adjusts the injection, the fuel injection to the engine without any other issue. Okay, for instance, to have an idea of the sector innovation system from ethanol and sugarcane, there is in Brazil around 1,000 varieties of sugarcane, depending on the land, depending on on if it's more dry or more wet, etc. You can choose the right variety for the production. Okay. There is also a concern on energy efficiency. All products that, to say, consume energy must have this label provided by an official institute that measures the consumption and the efficiency, the transformation of energy. For instance, cars, fridges, and so on. Okay. Let's go to the institutional landscape. I picked up some ministries that deals with innovation, but innovation is pervasive. So there is the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. The Ministry of Education has a very special role. The Ministry of Development, Industry, and External Trade, and the Ministry of Health that has launched recently a very interesting program on innovation in health. There is the Brazilian Innovation Agency. We have a kind of Fraunhofer-like institute, is Embrapi. It's run by the Ministry of Education. It's strange, but by historical reasons. There is the National Bank of Social and Economic Development and regional agents. All these agencies finance and subsidize innovation. Thinking of São Paulo, São Paulo has a research foundation that's the most important regional agency, regional in Brazil, of course, agents for science, technology, and innovation. One very interesting issue, it's the budget, FAPESP's budget, derives from the VAT of the state of São Paulo. It does not depend on the annual budget approved by the state legislature. So it's completely independent and smoothly. Okay. I mean, FAPESP has large projects connecting companies and universities. For instance, I work by the university in one of that projects, mostly on artificial intelligence, ICT, energy, drugs, Earths, and many others. And FAPESP runs a special program for innovation in small companies. The focus is on deep techs, and this program goes from the setting of the venture until commercialization and going abroad. And we made an evaluation of this program 2 years ago. One of very interesting issue is that the label FAPESP, for instance, the companies that participate in that program, having this label, it attracts investors. Okay, it's quite interesting. And FAPESP is connected to the world. FAPESP promotes with universities all over the world what they call the FAPESP Week. It's a discussion with companies and universities in a specific country. The last one was in Germany. 2 years ago, I was in Italy, Mario Salerno, okay? I was in Bologna, Italy, in one of these past weeks. Okay, we have a legal code on science, technology, and innovation. I will briefly pass through it in order for us to have time to discuss. There is an innovation law that stimulates firm and university cooperation that can arrange subsidies for special developments, for special innovation, and allows governmental acquisitions for innovative solutions. I can explain it later because, for instance, the government, the federal, the state, or the municipality, and the state-owned companies as well, they can buy a development. They can buy the risk of the development, okay? For instance, the last one was a vaccine for dengue. So the Ministry of Health bought the development of this vaccine, and in the agreement, they would buy millions of vaccines for years, okay? So there is an incentive for the developers. And the good law is mainly on fiscal incentives for R&D. You can, depending on the conditions, declare the double of the expenses in R&D. For instance, if a company has spent 100 reais, $100 or euros in R&D, they can make a deduction for the taxes of as if the company has spent 200. Okay? That's more or less the idea. It's based, but it's much better than a French law. It was French market. And there is the informatics law, and there is other sectoral laws, more or less the same, that for tax exemptions, a company invests in R&D. There's also for energy, for oil, and for telecommunications, and so on. Okay, there is a startup code summing up. The startups have some differentiations in public acquisitions and in regulation, as easier for startups than for incumbent companies. Okay. On university and large labs, Brazil has top quality public universities. For instance, University of São Paulo, that's the first position in Latin America. All major universities have technological offices, but the technological office deals with companies, okay, on intellectual property rights, agreements, and so on. At the University of São Paulo, there is Innova USP that congregates labs. For instance, C4AI, it's a lab for artificial intelligence. I'll show you in the next slide. But there is also synthetic biology, biotech for vaccine and drugs, a fab lab, and so on. And we have a network of national innovation labs on health, on agro, and there is some multi-purpose, like the CNPEN. CNPEN, it's unique in the world. It's a particular accelerators used for research on bio or on nano, on drugs, and so on. Okay, and of course, a network of technological services. This is the C4AI. It is the largest research center in the South, in the global South, apart from China, of course. And it congregates companies, FAPESP, the University of São Paulo, developing and researching models on AI. You can see some of the projects on natural language, on health, on agrotech, climate change and so on, they are developing there. Okay. Brazil has a lot of clusters, but I will focus on clusters in the São Paulo region. This is the state of São Paulo, and São Paulo city is around here. Okay. And there is a lot, this region, it's to say, it's the Brazilian California. There is a lot of companies, startups, deep techs, universities, research centers, and so on. Okay, and São Paulo, of course, is the hub. The São Paulo city is the hub of this to say network, multi-purpose. When, for instance, Ribeirão Preto is much dedicated to health equipment, and agribusiness, and so on. Piracicaba is ethanol. One very interesting thing that Brazil has one of the highest percentage of startups founded by undergraduate students. Here is Brazil, UK is here, Great Britain, okay, and the United States is here. Okay, going to the end, there is a lot of support for startups, public and private support. This is the institutions I told you before. ABDI is the Brazilian Agents of Industrial Development. They have a special program to support startup as well. SEBRAP is the same. A startup can benefit in public acquisitions. They get a higher punctuation than traditional companies, incumbent companies. There is a lot of private support, traditional, on venture capital, angels, corporate programs, accelerators, and so on. Okay, concluding. Brazil made a great effort to institutional update. We have ministries, innovation agencies, regulation. Of course, there is still a lot to improve, but every country has a lot to improve. We have some top industries and clusters. Can see, for instance, Braskem. Braskem is the leading company in the world to producing plastics from renewable materials. They produce plastics from ethanol, from sugar, okay, with plants in Brazil, plants in Denmark. There is a lot of transnational companies with R&D activities in Brazil. We have a green energy, we have a capital goods industry, aerospace, agribusiness, oil and gas, health, and so on. The Brazilian economy is very diversified. Large companies are investing in startups, and startups are booming in Brazil at the moment. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Please feel free to ask me questions you want.
Sorry. Professor, this has been an incredibly insightful session. Thank you very, very much for sharing the ecosystem in Brazil. I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure that all the audience that we have today as well have been inspired as well to participate in an immersion activity coming to Brazil. I have a number of questions that have popped reading your slides and hearing you. I am certainly impressed and would love to hear more about the different sectors you mentioned in Brazil. You mentioned a lot about energy and agri-tech, and as well health and specific projects, and as well incentive schemes and tax incentive schemes that the Brazil have. What do you recommend for the businesses that are listening to us today? What would be the best incentive schemes that you are aware within the energy agri-tech sector that you could share high level in this call for us, please?
Okay. It depends on our incentives. Depends on the size of the company. Okay. Certainly. So it's a startup. So go to FAPESP. In the state of São Paulo, FAPESP. Okay. FAPESP has some calls for startups. There are some calls for other for incumbent companies as well, but for startups, the PIP. PIP in Portuguese would be Innovation Program for Small Companies. Okay, it's for those who know the American, the United States panorama. It's similar to SBIR, Small Business Innovation Reserve. Similar. Okay. So if you are a startup, please go to FAPESP. Okay. It depends on the sector. Okay. Yes, FAPESP has some sectoral polls, okay, mostly on AI, agri-tech, and so on. You know, agri in Brazil is quite important. And tax incentives are meant to incumbent companies. So it doesn't work for startups because in the beginning, startups have no profit, so tax incentives is not a good tool for incentivizing startups. But our tax incentive is automatic. It's quite interesting. You don't have to ask for permission. You will be fiscalized, okay? But you don't. There is no need to ask for permission. This is a change in the law in 2004. Okay, so you have your accountability. In the accountability, there is a rule that states what are the accounts for R&D, okay, and these R&D accounts are incentivized. If you rise the employees in the R&D sector, you can get an extra incentive. For instance, it starts with 60%. So if you spend 100, you can deduce 160. Okay, so it reduces the tax on profits. Okay, because you have more expenses to save. If you increase the number of people, you can get an additional 20. So it's 80, 180. And if you depose a patent in Brazil, in our system, you can get another 20. So you can spend 100, and you can deduce 200. That's the tax incentive.
I am impressed, really impressed. I don't think, Professor.
In the world, there are two types of systems. The most important is governmental acquisitions. You know, if you think of trains, fast trains, in France, in Italy, in Korea, in Japan, they are all acquisition of the states, all, without exception. So, a state-owned company bought the project. Okay, this is the most important. We are starting with that. It was forbidden. There is a change in the law. You are starting mainly in health. There is a very interesting program of the Ministry of Health for the development of drugs and vaccines. You know, Brazil has a public system of health. It's similar to the British one, the old British one. Okay,
the old British one.
It's a mix of the British and the Italian one. So it's completely public, but you know, the public system has some specificity. So the Ministry of Education the Ministry of Health is buying innovation on vaccine, on drugs, in agreement with some of our national labs for the discovery of new drugs and new vaccines. It's quite exciting. It's quite new and quite interesting.
Professor, I'm certainly impressed with the tax incentives. I'm also impressed that everything is automatic. I thought other countries in Europe, certain more technology savvy countries, they do things so automatically, but I was really impressed. 200% tax reduction. I don't think you will get that in another country. And I'm also impressed that the health system and the opportunity to collaborate as well directly with the public sector is quite an opportunity opportunity. You also mentioned, Professor, about the startup ecosystem in Brazil, those that create startups in universities, is one of the highest in terms relative to other countries. So I'm wondering, is it because of the education system is more like entrepreneurial at the university level, hence the startups that get to be created, they are more mature and the investors are keen to invest in them? What are your thoughts on that? I was really curious when I saw this.
Good question. I don't know, but I think it's the opportunity. No. For instance, I teach in the last year of the engineering school. So I can discuss with the guys that are opening startups. In the most, I was not saying all, but in the most important universities, there is a support for establishing your own startup. Okay, we have that at University of São Paulo. If you go to University of São Paulo, you can see that. But for instance, Cubo and Inovabra, they are kind of incubators of startups, but from the two most important Brazilian private banks. Okay, so there is this ecosystem, and so there is a lot of opportunities. I think maybe because of that we have this figure, but I don't know.
I'm certainly impressed. And that goes hand in hand with the talent. We have a lot of companies now in this call that have joined, and they are listening and they are wondering, if I am to bring my company in Brazil, is there the talent to support me, or will I need to bring the talent from abroad to Brazil and to the LATAM region? Or is there already a university pool of talented individuals that can join me, and then I don't need to create all this visa ecosystem and inviting people from my home country? So what are your views on that?
No, keep your people in the headquarters. There is no need. The Brazilian universities are quite international. For instance, the Polytechnic School at the University of São Paulo, where I belong, has agreements of double degrees with the most important French, German, Italian. The most important is Polytechnique in France, Pont de Chaussée, École des Mines in France. German in I don't know exactly the German university system, but you know, all that Germans universities dealing with mechanical and electronical things. In Britain, I think it's with ICL. There is another one, I don't remember, and so you know, our students go to abroad and back. You know, this is quite interesting, and we receive as well guys mostly from Latin America, France and Italy, because we have a special agreement with France and Italy. Not that much from UK, but anyway. So you know, you can get the skills you need here.
That's excellent to hear. So for those listening, there is no need for you to bring the talent from your home because you'll get plenty of talent that can support you in the Brazilian ecosystem. So
you know, to get the talent, you must pay for it. Okay.
You need to pay for it, yes.
You pay, you guys.
Exactly. I think it's anywhere, but you need to first have the talent. And they are very tech savvy, I think, Brazilians, and it's a large market. So it's really certain an ecosystem. Once you go there and you're successful not in small scales, but in very large scales. Yeah. Isn't it? So talking about scales, right? If you are now a company looking to join us during this delegation, then they are looking to land in Brazil first, where would you recommend them to set up in terms of their whole hub? Do you think São Paulo is the right place to build their partnerships and collaborations, or should it be somewhere else in Brazil?
I'm from São Paulo. Okay, I would say if you have to choose a location, I would say think of São Paulo. But there are other places as well. Okay, the São Paulo, it's everywhere, everything. But there are some regional spots. For instance, in the northeast, Recife. Recife is in the very northeast, the closest spot from Africa, to say, in Brazil. There is a very interesting ecosystem on IT, software development. Also in the states, in the north of Pernambuco, Recife, Paraíba as well. If you think of raw materials, natural raw materials, think of Belém. Belém is in the Amazon region. Natura has a research center there. There is a German company that also has a production facility there, so to transform the raw materials in oil and butters and so on. So it depends, but you can find all of that in São Paulo. For instance, the headquarters of Natura is, 10 kilometers from São Paulo. The founder of Natura was from my school, so there is a network of that in São Paulo that's unbeatable, I would say.
So since you mentioned that, Professor, we will certainly call on you when we are in our trip to Brazil, because a lot of the firms that will be coming with us, if you have companies that have their executives have graduated from USP, that would be delighted to meet some of our companies for collaboration purposes, for co-development purposes. Sure. I think we will be sharing the list of those individuals that would like to do collaborations and co-creation with companies in Brazil. And I think if you do have some of the alumni students and some of these executives, for example, the Natura CEO you mentioned that has graduated from your university, having individuals like that sharing their experience and as well perhaps sealing a contract will be tangible results that we would like to have during this trade mission.
Okay. We can manage. And I would like to add one thing. Innovation is not only high tech. You always think of DNA and this kind of things, but there is a company in Brazil. It's the world's largest iron casting. So iron casting, it comes from centuries.
Yes.
Centuries and centuries. The Roman Empire had iron casting. So, but what have they done? For instance, they produce blocks for engines, for truck engines and so on. Okay, it's iron, steel. Okay, but it's heavy. There is the aluminum block. Aluminum is not that heavy, but the properties of the aluminum are not as good of the iron. Okay, they have developed a block on a specific iron mixed with nanotech and so on that weighs less than a block. And this kind of innovation, I think, is important as well, because it opens up avenues of growth for the company. So it's a unique product, and I think this is an issue that people must think of.
I quite like this approach, Professor. You mentioned that you don't need to be high tech, but you can have this speciality that turns something inefficient to more efficient, converting this material, the iron casting, to something more light, easy to move around. I think it's quite an engineering mind that perhaps these days we need, especially in the carbon world that we're trying to decarbonize. So having things that are less toxic or less carbon emitting, it's amazing. So I would certainly welcome to have companies that have these type of alternatives ways to do business or alternative methods and materials to come to this trade mission, because materials is something that Brazil quite welcomes as well. One final question for me, and I think while we are deliberating our final question, I would like to ask the audience if they do have any questions that they would like to pop into the chat. Please do feel free to ask on our Q&A chat. You will have the details of us afterwards to reach out to us. But my final question is, do you really need to be in Brazil to do business, or can you have an operation abroad? Do you have an actual satellite or a headquarter in Brazil to do business in Brazil?
You can do it abroad, of course, but it's not the same. Okay, it's not the same. First, Brazil is has a very huge internal market, and through Brazil you can access South America because of our agreements on trade. Argentina is the second largest market, but also Colombia. Colombia is quite important. Okay, and Uruguay is quite small, but it's a top market because Uruguay it's like Switzerland, to say, it's small and rich. We say that Uruguay is the Latin Americans. But anyway.
It is indeed. Professor, there is a question on our chat for which I'm going to read it up for you. Professor Mario, you have worked extensively on innovation management and innovation ecosystems, including through the University of São Paulo's Innovation Management Lab. When we're looking at the São Paulo, how well are universities, research centers, companies actually collaborating in practice? And then there were a couple of other questions. So that was the first question. And the second question, which technology sectors do you believe offer the greatest opportunities for international companies looking to enter Brazil in the next coming years? And the final question from this participant is, what advice would you give to a European or UK technology company considering its first expansion in Brazil? So one is about universities collaboration. The second one is about opportunities for international companies, which opportunities you find gaps that they could bring to Brazil. And the third one, advice for companies to consider their first expansion to Brazil.
Okay, let's take the first question, collaboration. And I was in the board of ABDI, the Brazilian Agency of Industrial Development. We made a kind of research. We went to multinational companies, discussing with their leaders on the easy or not to work with Brazilian university and tech center. No, it's quite easy, much easier than in Germany. For instance, Petrobras has around 4,000 contracts with universities in Brazil. I myself, I have worked by the university in contract with Unilever, the Brazilian Federal Police. And now we are starting a project with Didi. Didi is the Chinese Uber. They bought 99. 99 was the Brazilian Uber, to say. That was founded by guys from my school, okay? One of the startups. and the DD bought it. And now we are developing a project with DD on the work organization with AI agents. Nobody knows it. How to design an organizational system with AI agents. So this is the project with DD, and I am working also in a project with Claro. Claro, it's a telecom multinational. Headquarters is in Mexico, but is one of the largest in Brazil, and is also linked to AI and organization, the company. So this is quite.
I am impressed.
Quite simple.
So I'm impressed. So I can see that many international companies could potentially collaborate with you and do maybe like joint effort with all these organizations. You said Brazilian Police, Petrobras, Unilever, the Claro organization. So I'm really impressed.
We have also it's not an official program, but we discuss with startups of our students, And at Inova USP is the center, to say. It's a building with guys there. There is a space. It's a kind of co-working, but it's much more than a co-working space. That people discuss with the specialists and so on to improve their technology, mostly technology. So collaboration in Brazil works. It works, but keep in mind that university in UK, in Germany, in India, in Brazil, university is a university, a company is a company.
Yes,
they are different, and if you must think, you must have in mind that they are different, and you can't expect from university the agility of a consultants company, go to a consultants company. But by the other side, you can't think of a consultants company developing new things. They will not do it. Okay, so I think the key for collaboration is to be sure to have in mind what do we need from the partner. So what can I expect from that partner? Let's move to the second question.
Yes, indeed, it was about opportunities. And I see we have a very few minutes left. So if we can have short answers about the opportunities and as well for those coming first time to Brazil. I will, after the answers of the questions, I will also give a high level information about our trade mission, so people have some idea of what it is and they can reach out to us if they need more information. So in few words about opportunities in the coming years for a first-time European UK company coming to Brazil.
I have no answer, no exact answer for this question, because it all depends on your product, on your business model, and so on. But there are some sectors that are important: Brazil health, agri-tech, and IT.
Health, agri-tech, and IT.
There's also in casting. That casting company now is running an experimental plant to recycle ion lithium batteries. So things change, but I would say that now, currently, I would think of health, agro, but agro is the world. Also, health is the world, machinery, software.
We'd like to add perhaps cybersecurity and financial services and regulatory services. Yeah, sure. Anything that touches security, defense, and servicing consumers, I guess, could be, because it's a big consumer market. That is brilliant.
This is all IT, but you're right.
IT, exactly.
Finance is not the same. Okay. Our banking system is, I think, is one of the best in the world in technology. And so, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. And the advices, I think you must run the ground, must know the ground. So I think that's why these these programs like Brazil Tech Connect is is running. They are quite important. So even if you are in UK going to Spain, must know Spain a bit. Okay, I don't believe you can run a successful business without knowing the country, without establishing the country. Okay, it can happen, but the failure tax tend to be high. So the first thing I say is try to get to know the country, the opportunities, talk to the people. That's it. The other things they all have solutions. Okay, you will be surprised because the legal system is different, the culture is different. Okay, you are going to a different country, so you have unexpected environments, unexpected questions. But this is part of the game. So I would say feel the ground and be
It's
open to the ground.
important. With that in mind, Professor, I think we are very much in a very good timing of our presentation for us to talk a little bit about the immersion program that we have coming up. But before we do that, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Mario Sergio, for sharing all your incredible, invaluable time and insights with us. You have such a big knowledge and as well contacts in the industry that we would love to tap into during our immersion week. So I would like to thank you on behalf of everyone that has been on this call for your insights. So really looking forward to meeting you in person in my next trip to Brazil. So before we move to the next step, I also wanted to say that today's session will be, as I said, recorded. So you will have the pleasure to replay the session of Professor Mario. So you will have all these resources. But before we close our session today, I will share my screen again. And this time I'll give you the heads up as to what's coming up in November. So in November, we will have a very interesting program that we will like to share with you. So in November, we are doing our immersion activity, which is in São Paulo. So we are taking international businesses from across the world that are joining us in the delegation. And this is a very much a curated program, and one for which we will create all the matchmaking opportunities for the businesses to come. And you will have this network for which you can start continuing and doing trade with the businesses. So who are we inviting? We are inviting companies from across different sectors, and we will have dedicated meetings, one-to-one meetings for you to meet with relevant investors and as well collaborations. We will also go to a number of innovation hubs, and I'll deep dive into the program in a second. So further details about the program. So why is it interesting for you to come with us? Because if you are a UK company, there is the UK-Brazil strategic agreement that has been in partnership, that has been in discussion, and it will be concluded by 2030. So as you can see, there is a catalyst of opportunities for you to start collaborating with the Brazilian economy. Not only that, we also have the EU-Mercosur agreement that has recently been put forward. So there is a lot of procurement access for you and IP digital protection collaborations, united rules that makes it much easier for you to do business in Brazil. So both UK, European countries, companies that are keen to come to Brazil, this is really the time to come because there is agreements in place for you to collaborate. So before we actually have this trade admission, we will have these very tailored pre-trip preparation calls that will take place from October to the day we depart, that will prepare you for the intelligence of what you need to do and learn about the companies and opportunities that happen in Brazil. So just write down these dates. And during the visit, as you can see, a very comprehensive agenda that we have developed in partnership with all our collaborators on the ground, from incubators, from Cubo that we discussed. It's one of the major banking institutions in Itaú. They have a really big acceleration and incubation program. We will have one-to-one days, a Novabra Day, Distrito, Learning Village, and also, not to forget, a lot of networking opportunities as well with investors. So I want the companies to think that this is not just a trip for you or another visit to another ecosystem. We want to make this trip a tangible result trips where you can get some business opportunities. And for that will mean that we'll have this personalized follow-up with the companies you met so that you can create this bridge and turn the talk into action. So we want this to be not just one trip, but actually your next destination for your business. So what is it included? So the included part of the trip, it's all the business activities that happen on the ground, the online preparation sessions, all the accommodation from 22nd to 27th of November, the transportation on the ground, some snacks, refreshments. What is not included is the international flights. And we did that on purpose because we think that some of you might like to stay a little bit longer or come earlier. So you might want to visit the country. So what we have done here is for the organizations that are with us today on the call, we have a special price of 3,750. And for organizations that come through our partners, there is a discount for which we are offering through the partners of 10%. So if any of the organizations, the scale-ups that are interested to join and they are being introduced from our partners, they also get this discount of 10%. The window for opportunity for you to join us, to apply, is open, but it will close on the 4th of October. So you have a couple of days to decide, but certainly I will recommend that the earliest you do this, this will be easier for you to secure your space, because we had a lot of interest from many embassies across the world interested to send some of their companies. And then some final thoughts. Final thoughts is certainly to thank once again our amazing partners listed here that have been really supportive of all of our activities on the ground in Brazil, but also here in the UK and across Europe. So without them, this opportunity wouldn't have been able to happen. So thank you once again, all these beautiful partners that have been in the journey with us today. So next steps. Today was our first webinar, but we have a number of other spotlights that are taking place. Our next one is on the 30th of July, where we're going to talk about the legal innovation ecosystem of Brazil, what you need to know so that you are ready to come and set up your business. And then we will have a third episode, as we call it, as how Brazilian corporates are partnering with global technology companies. So watch out your space. We will secure the date and share that with you. And we also have as well a later September session about success stories. So companies that have come through this journey and have made it in Brazil, what take them to become successful? So once again, 4th of October is the application closure date, and the 7th of October is when we will be announcing all the companies participating this journey. And so here are the details for the 3rd of July webinar at 4 p.m. UK time and 5 p.m. CET time. So please do register, and I'm very sure that this will be a very interesting panel, similar to the one we have today. So thank you everyone very much for attending today's session. It's been a pleasure to have you. Here are our contact details, so please feel free if you have any questions about today's webinar or any question about the delegation, any information you need further before you decide, please reach out. Our contact details are here. It's been a pleasure and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.